Formula One racing. What is Formula One racing? Well, it's a type of car racing where the cars go left and they go right, they go up hills and they go down hills, as compared to the type of car racing that many of us are familiar with, which is NASCAR, where they drive down the track very fast and then they turn left, then they drive down the fast and they drive down the track and they turn left, and they kind of go in a big oval. With the Formula One racing, they go all over the place. And let's see, where do they do this? Well, they do it all over the world. It's a worldwide racing type of circuit. They race in Europe, Japan, China, India, South Africa, Australia, United States, Canada, all over the world. And they do it from about April of the year to about November of the year. They go about every 2 weeks for a race. And I guess the question is, why am I up here telling you about this type of racing? Well, it's because I'm a car racing fan, and Formula One racing is my most favorite type of racing. It's the most expensive racing in the world, it's the most sophisticated racing in the world, and I think it's the most exciting racing in the world. So let me tell you a little bit about the cars. The cars themselves cost about $1 to $2 million a piece for the car itself and all the related support equipment that go with it. And the drivers in these cars get paid somewhere in the neighborhood of, the good drivers get about $20 to $40 million a year to race these cars, and the mediocre drivers get about $10 to $20 million a year to race the cars. So the costs of the sport add up pretty quickly. But the car itself is what's called an open cockpit car. And by that I mean there's no enclosure around the driver. They're exposed to the elements. So when they have a race in the rain, these drivers get wet. And they also drive kind of single file down the track until they pass. And as a result, in a rainy race, a lot of water gets thrown up from the wheels into the driver's face. And since they don't have any windshields, they basically drive through rain with a visor on their helmet as the only protection for their eyes. So these drivers have to become very, very skillful at driving at about 120 to 160 miles an hour in the middle of a rainstorm. Try turning your windshield wipers off when you're next to a semi-truck on I-35 on a rainy day someday, and you'll get a little bit of an idea of what it's like to race in the rain at high speeds. The cars are not only open cockpit, but they're also open wheel. And again, unlike a NASCAR, the body does not enclose the wheels, so these tires are exposed to the racing elements. And as these drivers are going through their turns side by side, they have to avoid touching tires, because if they touch their tires at these high rates of speed, the cars tend to drive off the track and crash into walls. So again, these drivers have to be very, very skillful in their craft of racing these cars, so that they don't crash. The four main elements of a racing car are the chassis itself, but they have an engine. They use a V8 engine, and some of you are familiar with engines, but it means there's 8 cylinders in the engine. They have about a 2.4 liter engine displacement, which makes it about the size of that engine in your Honda Accord. For those of you who have a Honda Accord, it's about 2.5 quarts. About 4 of these pitchers would equal the displacement of these engines. They generate about 800 horsepower. Your Honda Accord generates about 100 horsepower, 110 horsepower. So these cars, instead of going 100 miles an hour top speed like your Honda Accord, they go about 200 miles an hour top speed for the racing. And they also have a 6-speed transmission in the cars, and instead of having a gear shift on the floor like you see in many manual transmission cars, these drivers have a little gear shift paddle on their wheels, so they actually shift with their thumbs. So when they're driving through turns at these high rates of speed, they can downshift or upshift to keep their car going at a high speed. On the front of these cars and on the rear of the cars are wings. And what the Formula One race cars do is they take the wings, like the wing of an airplane, and they turn it upside down so that as they're driving through the air at a high rate of speed, the wing force is actually pointed down toward the ground instead of up in the air like an airplane. so that it creates a great amount of grip for these cars on the track. So they can drive through these turns at 130, 140 miles an hour without flying off the track. Tires are the next most important component in the car, and in a Formula One race, they have to use a soft compound rubber tire and a hard rubber compound tire during the race, and the rules state that they have to use one of each during the race. So there's a lot of race strategy in terms of the pit stops related to this tire strategy. A pit stop typically takes about 3.5 seconds for a Formula One car. The pit guys come running out of the pits and they take 4 tires off the car and they put 4 tires on in about 3.5 to about 5 seconds during a race. That adds to the excitement. And since I only have about 3 to 5 minutes to explain a pretty complex process, I'm going to kind of end it here and just ask all of you to maybe share some of my passion for this type of car racing. And if you happen to see a Formula One race on television, tune into it, and you'll kind of get a little bit of an idea of what makes Mike Mulcahy so excited about Formula One racing. And we thank you very much.